There comes a moment in every life when the mind grows heavy, not because of the weight of the world, but because of the weight we allow to stay inside us. Thoughts that should have passed through a set-up camp in the quiet corners of our minds, whispering doubts, stirring old wounds, and dimming the light that tried so faithfully to shine. And though no one else can hear that storm, you feel every rumble, every shadow, every trembling echo of a fear that insists on returning. But the human spirit was never designed to be a storage room for the broken, the bitter, or the bruised. It was crafted to rise, to breathe, to release, to grow, and to walk forward with grace so steady that even chaos must bow in respect. There are people who carry their hurt the way others carry fire. Close, too close, until the flames lick at their peace. They replay old conversations, imagine new betrayals, create entire theaters of pain in their own minds, then wonder why the world looks so dim. But the truth is simple: you cannot heal a life while rehearsing your wounds. You cannot stand tall while bowing before toxic thoughts. And you cannot live the fullness of your purpose while clutching the very ideas that shrink you. Yet even when we know this, we struggle, because the mind is a powerful storyteller, and it can wrap old sorrow in such convincing language that we start believing the lies it tells. It tells you that you aren't capable, even though you've survived storms that would have shattered someone else. It tells you that you don't matter, even though there are hearts beating easier, because you exist. It tells you that your mistakes define you, though every dawn you've seen rises to give you a chance to define yourself again. The mind repeats these things because toxic thoughts are persistent. They grow roots in the soil of unresolved emotion. They cling to the memory of a moment when you were broken, tired, lonely, or unheard. And when you try to move forward, they tug you back with their tired hands. But you, my dear, were made for more than being pulled backward by what is already behind you. You were made with a soul that knows how to return to peace. You were made with a heart that can become soft again. You were made with a mind that can learn to let go. Freeing your mind is not a battle. It is a return. A return to the truth of who you are. A return to the quiet wisdom you carry. A return to the power you forgot you had. It begins with the decision to step out of your own way, to stop arguing with your past, and to stop believing that every thought deserves a place at your table. Because the mind can be a palace or a prison, and every day you choose which one you live in. When a toxic thought enters your mind, it does not knock politely, it breaks in. It rummages through your peace. It pours doubt into your confidence. It builds stories that were never meant to exist. But you must learn to stand guard at the door of your own thinking. Do not offer tea to thoughts born from fear. Do not hand over your joy to the whispers of insecurity. Do not surrender the present moment to memories dressed in regret. When a thought dishonors your spirit, escort it out. When a thought weighs heavily, refuse to carry it. When a thought lies, do not negotiate with it. There is courage in letting go of what hurts you. There is power in releasing what limits you. And there is deep, undeniable freedom in choosing the thoughts that serve your growth, your peace, your purpose, and your becoming. You must learn to focus, not with force, but with gentleness, like guiding a child back to the path each time they wander. Focus is not about blocking out the world. It is about returning again and again to what matters. Every time your mind strays into darkness, take it by the hand and guide it back into the light. Every time it tries to relive an old hurt, remind it that you survived. Every time it paints the future with fear, remind it that you have walked through uncertainty before and still found your way. There are quiet disciplines that shape the mind into a place where peace can breathe. The discipline of choosing silence over chaos. The discipline of listening to your body when it whispers that it is tired. The discipline of walking away from what disturbs your spirit. The discipline of refusing to rent mental space to people who do not deserve a place in your heart. The discipline of speaking to yourself with the same tenderness you offer others. For too long, many have been kind to the world but cruel to themselves. They forgive others yet punish their own hearts. They make space for others' emotions but bury their own. They uplift everyone else but allow their inner voice to tear them down. But you cannot pour sweetness from a bitter cup. You cannot uplift others while drowning in your own self-talk. It is time to treat yourself with the compassion you so freely give. You deserve the same softness you offer. You deserve the same patience you extend. You deserve the same care you provide. And when toxic thoughts arise, and they will, you must meet them with clarity, not with panic, not with shame, simply clarity. Observe them like clouds passing across the sky. Do not chase them. Do not argue with them. Do not hold on to them. Let them drift until they dissolve on their own. Everything inside you does not need your involvement. Some things simply need your permission to pass. If your mind is cluttered with worries, release them one by one. If it is carrying other people's expectations, set them down gently. If it is crowded with old wounds, give them room to heal. If it is tangled in the noise of the world, step back and return to your own breath. Your breath, steady, loyal, constant, is the oldest friend you have. When the world overwhelms you, return to it. When thoughts run wild, return to it. When your heart races, return to it. Your breath will always lead you back to yourself, back to the place where toxic thoughts lose their power. The human mind becomes free when it remembers its own authority. You are not the servant of your thoughts, you are their master. You are the composer, not the instrument. You are the sky, not the storm. When you anchor yourself in this truth, the weight of negativity begins to fall away. You must also learn the art of keeping your distance from what drains you. There are conversations that bruise the spirit. There are people who plant seeds of doubt. There are places where your peace cannot breathe. Protect your energy with the dignity of someone who knows their worth. You do not owe your presence where your soul feels unwelcome. You do not owe your time to what steals your clarity. You do not owe your spirit to what poisons your mind. There is a sacredness to protecting your inner world. You are the caretaker of your mind, the guardian of your peace, the keeper of your own light. Do not hand this responsibility to anyone else. People will bring you their fears, and you may feel compelled to carry them. People will bring their bitterness, and you may feel tempted to heal it. But you cannot purify someone else's thoughts at the cost of poisoning your own. You were never meant to bleed for others so deeply that you forget your own wounds are still open. Focus comes when you simplify your world, when you choose intention over impulsiveness, purpose over distraction, clarity over confusion. There is strength in living lightly, not because you are careless, but because you refuse to carry what does not belong to you. As you begin to release toxic thoughts, you will discover a strange quiet inside yourself, a stillness you may not have felt in years. Do not be afraid of it. Peace can feel unfamiliar when you have lived with noise for too long, but allow that quiet to take root. Allow it to soften your edges. Allow it to fill the empty spaces where anxiety once lived. Peace is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of clarity. It is the knowledge that no storm can unmake what is meant for you. It is the inner whisper that says, "You are safe here. You are allowed to rest." And rest, my dear, is not a luxury. It is a necessity. A tired mind becomes a magnet for toxic thoughts. A rested mind becomes a mirror for wisdom. When you give yourself permission to slow down, you make room for your thoughts to settle and for your spirit to rise. As you walk forward, remind yourself that you deserve a life that feels calm on the inside. You deserve mornings without dread, days without fear, nights without the replay of old hurts. You deserve joy that is not interrupted by anxiety. You deserve love that does not awaken your wounds. You deserve a mind that speaks to you with honesty, not cruelty. Freeing your mind is not an overnight achievement. It is a lifelong practice. Some days you will feel light, unburdened, steady. Other days, old thoughts will try to return, knocking loudly, insisting on a place in your life. But you are no longer the person who entertains them. You have grown, you have learned, you have awakened, and growth gives you the strength to choose differently. Choose thoughts that nourish you. Choose ideas that expand you. Choose beliefs that honor your journey. Choose perspectives that build you. Choose stories that lift you into the future instead of locking you in the past. And when your mind becomes free, your life becomes your own again. You begin to walk with a quiet confidence, the kind that does not need noise to be heard. You begin to see possibility where you once saw fear. You begin to trust yourself, not blindly, but bravely. You begin to feel the fullness of being alive, unburdened by the weight of what once haunted you. The world looks different when the mind is clear. Colors feel brighter. Love feels safer. Dreams feel reachable. The future feels open. You begin to live from your center, not from your chaos. And that is where your true power lies. You were never meant to be imprisoned by your thoughts. You were meant to be guided by them, strengthened by them, illuminated by them. You are meant to move through this world with a mind that lifts you, not one that buries you. Your mind is not a battlefield. It is a garden. And you must tend to it daily, removing the weeds, nurturing the seeds, protecting the soil where your peace grows. When you do this, when you honor your mind the way you honor your dreams, you will discover a freedom so profound that nothing toxic can survive in its presence. You will live from the light within you, a light that burns brighter each time you choose peace over fear, clarity over confusion, love over bitterness. And in that freedom, you will find yourself again, whole, steadiest, and finally, beautifully free. Your focus sharpens when you stop carrying responsibilities that are not yours. It is one of the quiet truths of life that many people move through their days burdened by weights they were never meant to hold. Sometimes these weights come from expectations placed upon them by family, friends, or society. Other times these burdens are self-imposed, carried out of guilt, fear, or the desire to please everyone around them. But the heart was not created to be a container for every demand, every emotion, every problem that crosses its path. There is a sacred boundary between what is yours to carry and what must be gently returned to its rightful owner. When you learn that difference, your clarity deepens, your breath softens, and your focus awakens in a way it never has before. There are people who live their entire lives trying to rescue others from storms they never created. They stretch themselves thin, trying to fix what was never their job to fix. They take on responsibilities simply because someone else refused to take care of their own. They absorb emotions that do not belong to them, thinking that carrying someone else's pain is a form of loyalty or love. But carrying the weight of someone else's world does not save them. It only sinks you. And slowly, the mind that once held dreams becomes cluttered with problems that were never yours to solve. Focus is not just about discipline. It is about alignment. When your life is filled with tasks, burdens, and emotional loads that do not align with your purpose, everything becomes heavy. Even simple things feel overwhelming because your energy is scattered in 100 directions. You begin to forget what your own responsibilities even look like because you are too busy tending to everyone else's. You lose sight of your own goals, your own healing, your own path, and in that loss your vision becomes blurry. Not because you lack ambition, but because you are carrying too much that was never yours. There is a quiet power in saying no, not out of selfishness, but out of self-preservation. There is wisdom in understanding that some problems belong to others, and taking them on will not teach them to grow. It will only teach them to rely on you for what they must learn to hold themselves. When you carry what is not yours, you interrupt their journey and suffocate your own. The mind becomes tired. The spirit becomes heavy. The focus you need for your life becomes clouded beneath layers of unnecessary weight. Many people mistake responsibility for obligation. They think that being a good friend, a good partner, or a good family member means never refusing, never stepping back, never placing boundaries. But true compassion includes knowing your limits. It includes recognizing when you are being asked to hold too much. It includes the strength to step aside when something is draining your energy without nourishing your spirit. You cannot pour from a cup that is cracked from carrying too much for too long. Your mental clarity demands the same care you give to your body and your heart. When you begin releasing responsibilities that do not belong to you, you make room for your own life to breathe again. You begin to see your priorities with new eyes. You remember dreams that had been buried under other people's expectations. You rediscover the tasks that truly matter, the ones that shape your growth, your peace, your purpose. And suddenly, the world feels less chaotic because your mind is no longer divided between what is yours and what is not. The mind finds focus when the load it carries is rightful. A farmer does not harvest from a field that is not his. A teacher does not grade papers from a class they never taught. A traveler does not carry another person's luggage on a long journey through mountains. And yet, in life, people often attempt to carry emotional, mental, and spiritual luggage that is not theirs. This creates a mental exhaustion that steals focus, drains joy, and slows progress. You must return the weight that does not belong to you. Only then will your steps feel lighter. There is a difference between helping and carrying. Helping is support, carrying is surrendering your peace. Helping is love, carrying is losing yourself. Helping uplifts, carrying depletes. When you understand this difference, you begin to interact with the world in a healthier, more grounded way. You learn to say, I can walk with you, but I cannot walk for you. You learn to say, I care for you, but I cannot carry your choices. You learn to say, I am here, but I must still protect my own peace. Every responsibility you let go of gives birth to a moment of clarity. You begin to feel your energy return to your center, rather than being constantly pulled outward. Your mind begins to settle. Your thoughts become sharper, and your decisions become wiser. Focus thrives when the mind is not spread thin across a landscape of unnecessary burdens. Focus grows when you tend to your own life with presence and intention, instead of scattering your time and energy across matters that drain you. Sometimes the responsibilities you must release are invisible ones. The emotional labor of keeping everyone else comfortable. The silent task of absorbing others' negativity. The pressure to be strong for everyone at all times. These hidden burdens often weigh heavier than any physical task, yet they go unnoticed by the world. You do not need to carry the emotional reactions of others. You do not need to carry the guilt that does not belong to you. You do not need to carry the fear someone else projected onto you. These responsibilities slip into the mind quietly, but once you identify them, you can begin to set them down. When you stop carrying responsibilities that are not yours, you also reclaim your inner voice. That voice becomes clearer, louder, and wiser. You are able to hear your intuition again. The guidance that gets drowned out when your mind is noisy with other people's problems. You begin to trust yourself more deeply because your attention is no longer divided. Your purpose feels closer. Your steps feel intentional. Your path feels open. Letting go of what is not yours is not abandonment. It is alignment. It is choosing to live with integrity toward yourself. It is acknowledging that you are a human being with limits, not an endless well. And when you honor those limits, you unlock a new kind of strength. The strength of clarity, the strength of freedom. the strength of a focused mind that moves with purpose rather than pressure. And in that clarity, you begin to understand that your life becomes lighter not when the world demands less, but when you choose to carry only what is truly yours. Discipline of the mind begins with small, daily choices that honor your peace. It is a quiet, steady work that most people overlook, believing that discipline is only for great feats or monumental achievements. But the mind is not strengthened in grand gestures alone. It is cultivated in the subtle, repeated acts of care, attention, and intention that you make each day. Every thought you allow, every habit you nurture, every moment you choose presence over distraction contributes to the shape of your inner world. The smallest choices repeated consistently form the architecture of mental clarity and the foundation for a life that is calm, focused, and resilient. Every morning when you wake, you are given a blank canvas, but too often we rush to fill it with noise, worry, and obligations that do not serve us. The discipline of the mind begins when you pause before the chaos and ask yourself what truly deserves your attention. It is a decision to prioritize peace over urgency, presence over panic, and intention over habit. When you choose to honor your mental space, even in small ways, you are teaching yourself that your inner life matters, that your thoughts deserve care, and that clarity is not accidental, it is cultivated. Small choices might look like the decision to breathe deeply before reacting to a stressful situation, rather than letting emotion dictate your response. They might look like choosing to speak to yourself with kindness instead of criticism when your mind begins to spiral into self-doubt. They might look like the decision to step away from a conversation or environment that threatens your calm, even when it feels uncomfortable to set that boundary. Each of these decisions, though seemingly minor, compounds over time. Each act of conscious attention strengthens the muscles of your mind, building a resilience that allows you to navigate life with steadiness, even amid uncertainty. Discipline of the mind is not about rigid control or suppression of emotions. It is about cultivating awareness and choosing how to engage with your own thoughts. When a negative thought arises, discipline allows you to notice it without letting it dominate your day. When a distraction calls for your attention, discipline gives you the capacity to decide whether it deserves a place in your focus. This daily practice is subtle, almost invisible to others, yet its effects are profound. A mind disciplined in this way does not react impulsively. It observes, evaluates, and then responds in alignment with what truly serves the individual. Consistency is the secret companion of this discipline. One moment of calm, one single choice to honor your peace will not transform the mind overnight. But when repeated, when made daily and intentionally, it becomes habit. The mind learns that it can rely on your guidance, that not every thought must dictate action, that stillness is an option, and that focus can be chosen even in the midst of life's turbulence. Small choices accumulate like drops of water, eventually filling the reservoir of clarity, insight, and inner strength. Another aspect of this discipline is the cultivation of routines that support mental peace. These routines are not rigid rules, but gentle anchors in your day. They might include moments of meditation, journaling, mindful walking, or simply sitting in quiet reflection. They are acts of commitment to yourself, reminders that your mind deserves care. Over time, these routines create a rhythm that reinforces focus, nurtures resilience, and prevents the accumulation of mental clutter. The disciplined mind becomes a sanctuary where creativity, clarity, and calm can flourish because it has been trained to recognize and protect its boundaries. The discipline of the mind also involves conscious management of external influences. Every day, countless stimuli vie for your attention. News, social media, conversations, responsibilities, and more. Without deliberate choices, your mind becomes fragmented, pulled in 100 directions, and stripped of its ability to focus. Discipline means recognizing which influences nourish your spirit and which deplete it. It means creating boundaries with people, environments, and media that disrupt your clarity. It means selectively allowing only what aligns with your values, purpose, and mental well-being to enter your space. Each choice to protect your mind reinforces the habit of intentional living and strengthens the neural pathways that favor focus over chaos. Furthermore, the discipline of the mind involves self-compassion and patience. You will stumble, you will occasionally allow distractions to dominate or negative thoughts to linger. Discipline is not punishment, it is guidance. When you fall short, you gently redirect yourself, observing without judgment, and recommit to your intention. This gentle persistence builds resilience, teaching the mind that mistakes are opportunities for realignment rather than evidence of failure. Over time, the mind begins to internalize this approach, learning to self-correct, self-nurture, and self-empower, even without constant external intervention. Every choice you make, no matter how small, communicates to your mind what you value. Choosing calm over panic, clarity over chaos, attention over distraction, and presence over autopilot gradually rewires the way your brain processes information and responds to stress. Each repetition strengthens pathways that favor peace, creativity, and focus. In this way, mental discipline is both an art and a science, a deliberate cultivation of habits that shape the very structure of your thinking and your capacity to live with intention. The disciplined mind also recognizes the power of limits. It understands that attempting to do everything at once or carrying burdens that are not yours diminishes focus and clarity. Setting boundaries, saying no, and prioritizing what truly matters are essential practices in honoring your mental space. Each time you protect your time, your attention, and your energy, you reinforce the habit of conscious choice, strengthening the mind's ability to focus, reflect, and respond with wisdom rather than reaction. This discipline extends to the way you speak to yourself. The inner dialogue is a constant conversation that can either build or erode focus. Small choices in language, tone, and perspective have profound effects over time. Choosing encouragement over criticism, gratitude over complaint, and possibility over limitation trains the mind to align with growth and clarity. The words you speak to yourself shape not only your emotions, but also your ability to sustain attention, make decisions, and approach challenges with resilience. A disciplined mind is also an aware mind. It observes patterns of thought and behavior, recognizes triggers that disrupt peace, and takes proactive steps to maintain focus. It is conscious of the way energy flows throughout the day, acknowledging when to engage, when to rest, and when to redirect attention. By paying close attention to these subtle patterns, the mind learns to optimize its functioning, creating a natural rhythm that balances activity with reflection, thought with stillness, and work with rest. Ultimately, the discipline of the mind is a lifelong practice, not a temporary project. It requires daily recommitment, gentle correction, and consistent attention to the choices that shape inner experience. Each small intentional decision honors your peace, cultivates focus, and builds the foundation for a life lived with clarity and purpose. As the mind becomes disciplined, it transforms into a trusted ally capable of navigating challenges with resilience, discerning opportunities with clarity, and sustaining focus amidst the inevitable distractions of life. It is through these daily choices, repeated over time, that the mind becomes both sanctuary and instrument, a source of strength, creativity, and unwavering attention. A clear mind emerges when you create distance from people and patterns that drain your spirit. It is one of the most profound acts of self-respect to recognize what diminishes your energy and to step away from it, even when stepping away feels uncomfortable or unfamiliar. There is a subtle violence in remaining tethered to influences that do not nurture your growth, yet so many carry these burdens out of habit, guilt, or misplaced loyalty. Every interaction, every repeated pattern, every expectation that is not aligned with your inner truth takes a small toll on your mental clarity. Over time, these tolls accumulate, leaving the mind heavy, the heart weary, and the soul distracted from its own purpose. To reclaim clarity, one must cultivate discernment, the ability to distinguish what nourishes from what depletes, what aligns with your spirit from what disrupts it, and then to act with courage to create space for what matters most. Distance does not always mean physical separation. Often, it begins in the mind and heart, a conscious decision to disengage from energy that pulls you into fear, anxiety, or negativity. Toxic patterns can be subtle: the habit of replaying old arguments, the expectation that you must fix what is not yours to fix, the compulsion to seek approval from those who do not value your worth. These patterns infiltrate the mind quietly, like weeds in a garden, and if left unchecked, they crowd out focus, creativity, and peace. Creating distance is a deliberate act of pruning, of removing what obstructs clarity, so that the mind may flourish with freedom and purpose. People often misunderstand the importance of boundaries. They see them as cold or selfish, but in truth, boundaries are an act of wisdom and love for yourself and for those around you. When you fail to establish boundaries, you become a receptacle for the energy, expectations, and chaos of others, leaving less room for your own dreams, your own healing, and your own clarity. Boundaries are not walls, they are gates that you control. They determine what enters your mental and emotional space, ensuring that only what aligns with your well-being and purpose is allowed to take root. In this sense, boundaries are discipline in action, daily choices that honor your peace and protect the focus of your mind. Patterns are just as important as people in determining the health of your mind. Habitual thoughts, repeated behaviors, and ingrained emotional responses can drain your spirit just as much as toxic relationships. Perhaps you find yourself obsessively scrolling through social media, measuring yourself against unrealistic standards, or dwelling on what others think of you. Perhaps you have a tendency to replay conversations in your mind, interpreting tone or meaning in ways that create anxiety or resentment. Perhaps you allow fear to dictate decisions, replaying what-ifs endlessly. These patterns are invisible leeches, sapping energy that could be directed toward creativity, growth, or self-discovery. To create a clear mind, you must identify these patterns, observe them without judgment, and consciously redirect your attention to thoughts and behaviors that serve your clarity and purpose. Distance from what drains you requires courage, because it often means challenging social norms or confronting uncomfortable truths. You may have been conditioned to believe that keeping everyone else happy is more important than your own peace. You may fear rejection, criticism, or conflict. Yet, the mind can only be free when you prioritize your mental and emotional health above the expectations and opinions of others. Choosing to disengage from what diminishes you is not abandonment. It is an affirmation of your value. It is a declaration that your clarity, focus, and well-being matter, and that no one has the right to dilute them. There is a rhythm to clearing the mind that mirrors the natural world. Just as a tree sheds leaves that are no longer nourishing, the mind must shed relationships, thoughts, and behaviors that drain energy without giving back. This is not a one-time act. It is a continual process of assessment, pruning, and realignment. Sometimes the drainage is subtle and slow, requiring patience to recognize and courage to address. Other times it is sudden and jarring, demanding immediate action to protect your peace. In both cases, the principle remains the same. Clarity cannot coexist with unnecessary burdens. To think clearly, act decisively, and live fully, you must remove that which consumes your focus and energy without contributing to your growth. Emotional distance is as vital as physical or behavioral distance. It is possible to coexist in the same environment as someone who drains you, yet remain untouched by their negativity through the cultivation of internal boundaries. Emotional distance involves observing interactions without absorbing unnecessary fear, anger, or judgment. It involves holding space for others' experiences without allowing them to dominate your own. It involves recognizing that another person's reaction is a reflection of their journey, not a mandate upon your peace. Through emotional discernment, the mind gains clarity because it is no longer a sponge for every disturbance in the world. You become the curator of your thoughts, allowing only that which nourishes insight, creativity, and focus. Creating distance also invites intentional presence. Once you remove what drains your spirit, you must replace it with what restores and uplifts you. Time with supportive, inspiring people, engagement in meaningful work, immersion in nature, and moments of reflective solitude all act as fertilizers for the mind. Every moment spent in alignment with your values strengthens neural pathways of focus, reinforcing the habit of choosing clarity over chaos. The mind begins to function like a well-tended garden, capable of producing insight, creativity, and resilience because it has been cleared of clutter and nourished with intentional care. Patterns of thought, too, can be reshaped through practice and attention. Mindfulness, journaling, meditation, or simply the act of consciously choosing one thought over another are tools to cultivate clarity. By observing recurring negative thoughts without judgment and redirecting them toward constructive reflection, you teach the mind to operate with intentionality. Over time, these repeated choices form new mental habits that prioritize focus, peace, and discernment over reaction, distraction, and energy loss. Every small choice compounds, creating a mind that is disciplined, alert, and capable of profound clarity even amid complexity. Distance from what drains you is not static. Life presents new challenges, new people, and new circumstances that may test your clarity. The disciplined mind must remain vigilant, continually assessing where energy is spent and whether existing boundaries remain effective. It must adapt, learning to identify emerging patterns of depletion before they solidify into habits. Flexibility is part of clarity because it allows the mind to maintain focus without rigidity, to create space without isolation, and to respond to life's inevitable flux with composure and insight. A mind that cultivates distance consciously develops resilience, a mental agility that enables it to retain focus while navigating unpredictable circumstances. The social dimension of mental clarity cannot be overstated. Human relationships carry immense potential for enrichment, but they also carry the risk of drainage when misaligned. People who are chronically negative, manipulative, envious, or demanding can consume attention and energy that should be devoted to personal growth. Distance from such influences, whether through reduced contact, clear boundaries, or mental disengagement, frees cognitive and emotional resources. These resources are then available for creative pursuits, reflection, problem solving, and relationships that honor and uplift you. By choosing your interactions deliberately, you exercise the discipline of attention, and your mind begins to operate with greater focus and precision. Distance from draining patterns also fosters authenticity. When you are no longer entangled in the expectations, negativity, or manipulations of others, you can think, act, and create in alignment with your inner truth. You are no longer reacting to outside pressures, but responding from a place of integrity. Decisions become clearer, priorities become more obvious, and actions more purposeful. Mental clarity is born not from isolation, but from the selective engagement with the world, a measured choice to interact in ways that respect your energy while allowing meaningful contributions. The process of creating distance is intertwined with self-compassion. Recognizing what drains you is an act of self-awareness. Removing it is an act of self-love. Compassion allows you to do this without shame or guilt, understanding that protecting your clarity is not selfish but necessary. It acknowledges that your mental space is valuable, that your focus matters, and that you deserve the mental freedom to pursue your purpose and well-being. Through this practice, the mind becomes stronger, more resilient, and increasingly capable of sustained attention, deep thinking, and insightful action. By continuously evaluating the sources of mental and emotional drainage, cultivating boundaries, and prioritizing alignment with what nourishes the spirit, the mind gradually becomes a sanctuary. This sanctuary is not empty or disconnected, but filled with selective engagement, reflective awareness, and the capacity for profound focus. It is a space where thoughts can be explored without chaos, where creativity can flourish without interference, and where decisions can be made without distraction. The clarity that emerges is not accidental. It is earned through conscious choices, consistent practice, and courageous discernment. A clear mind is also a liberated mind. The energy once consumed by external drains is now available for self-expression, problem-solving, and growth. The focus that was previously fragmented becomes concentrated, allowing tasks to be approached with efficiency, creativity, and depth. Ideas that were buried beneath mental clutter emerge into consciousness with vibrancy and clarity. Decisions become easier, actions more deliberate, and vision more expansive. By creating distance from what diminishes you, the mind becomes a fertile ground for the full expression of intelligence, insight, and purpose. The practice of maintaining this distance is ongoing, not a single act. Life will always present new people, patterns, and pressures that test the limits of focus and mental clarity. The disciplined mind learns to adapt, to continuously assess what aligns with its purpose and what drains its energy, and to respond with measured action. Through this ongoing vigilance, the mind remains clear, focused, and capable of sustaining attention on what truly matters. Each act of boundary setting, each intentional choice to disengage from drains, reinforces the habit of clarity and strengthens the mind's resilience against chaos, distraction, and negativity.